सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.
Barerupa Bhakti presents The Gift of Desperation, a Bhakti recovery podcast. This is a 12-step based Bhakti-oriented space. Here we share our experience, strength, and hope in the spirit of recovery from addictions and associated behaviors. Welcome. Hello, hello, hello. Well, today we have Michael. We got Michael L. I'm not going to say his last name because it's anonymous. Mikey has been around the Bhakti Recovery Group for a couple of years. Mike lives in California, in Newport Beach. He's a skater. I don't know, you like professional or semi-professional skater?
I don't get paid to skateboard. I love skateboarding so much, so I love to skateboard. I am sponsored by a few different cool companies that really help me along in my skateboarding. I skateboard every day, but I don't get paid to do it.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah.
He is an aspiring devotee. He is also in AA and in the Bhakti Recovery Group. So, wow, how cool is that? And he's had a really good story. Actually, I'm going to even ask him a bit about his story. So, with no further ado, Mike on the mic. So, Mike, hi.
Hi. I do.
Hey, it's so nice that you're here. I'm really, really glad you said yes to this. I know it was a little bit back and forth. You weren't so sure you wanted to do it, but it's service. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. I really do.
Good. Oh, good. So why don't you tell us a little bit? Okay, so I know you're born and raised in Southern California. How did you get into recovery? Or do you need to like do a lead up onto that? Like, how did you get into recovery? Or did you get into Bhakti first? Or what came first?
Okay, so like recovery, the whole spirit of recovery in AA has been in my family since my whole life. Like when I was little, my mom had like there was always a big book or a 12 and 12 or the daily reflections books that were just sitting around the house like that. My mom would go to a lot of meetings. My grandma, my mom's mom, yeah, I remember she goes to meetings still and speaks at women's meetings all over the place. And my mom's side of the family and my dad's side is pretty bad alcoholics too, but my mom's side of the family was definitely bad alcoholics, but they decided, to do something about it. And so I've always known of AA. It's always been a thing. When I was little, my mom used to drag me to AA meetings and I'd just be in the parking lot riding my skateboard around.
I love
and
that.
so
little Mikey on his board at an AA meeting in the church parking lot.
Totally. And I would poke my heads into the meetings and just be like, whoa, like, okay. And everybody was always so loving and welcoming. All the people, all the different people at the AA meetings, and they're always happy to see me. And it was, as far as I can remember, it was always an awesome experience going to these meetings and meeting these different alcoholics, I could say. I remember there was a time when my grandma would house different women, that were struggling and bring them into her house and let them stay with us for a while. Cause there was a time when my parents lived with my grandma and so, crazy things would happen. Like she would let some air in and they would steal a bunch of stuff. And then it would be like, oh,
steal a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and then disappear and be like, what happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
One guy stole my grandma's car, I remember, and he was working on it. He was like an AA guy and he took off with it. And and it was just, but I guess that's what, reading the book and stuff, that's what we do, is we help people. Sometimes it's to a fault,
Yeah.
um
Yeah. That's when we need Coda. That's when we need Al-Anon and Coda.
yeah. And so yeah, that's AA's always been in my life. So
Wow. Did you
yeah.
did you understand it as a kid, or was it just kind of like something your parents did?
Well, it was my mom did. My dad
Or your
never.
mom? Yeah.
Yeah. My dad always just did his thing, but my mom, my mom didn't. Did I understand it? No. To
Okay.
me, it was kind of like it was just always there. I didn't really care to understand it.
Yeah. But it was there,
I was.
which is really
It was
cool.
always there. Yeah, it was always there, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, super cool. So all right, so then after so when did you decide that you're like, okay, I'm like, so you started doing drugs, you started drinking, you started partying. When did that all
Mhm.
happen?
Not till a little later in my life. Like, I want to say, skateboarding kept me out of trouble for a while. But
Wow.
it,
Actually, with my friends, it's always been the opposite, hanging out with all the freaking burnouts who are skaters and stuff. I mean,
oh,
for us, it was like different.
I mean, all those boys were there, and they were all doing that kind of stuff. I remember being very little, out street skating, and all the boys are at the school or wherever we're at, and they're passing around 40s and smoking weed, and like all that stuff was always around. I just never really
Mm.
so interested in it
Mm.
for a long time. Like, I never really paid it any mind. I just wanted to ride the skateboard, and until it wasn't like that. I remember one summer, I was with a good friend of mine that I grew up skating with. We were at one of the skate parks, and he had 1 second.
I'm gonna put it on
He
pause
had
for a second. No, good.
we were at
Sorry.
one of the skate parks. I would think I was about 17 years old, 17 maybe, and somebody offered us a beer out of his cooler we were skating with, and I remember just like, this is not so attractive to me. My homeboy was like, they're good. I don't think he's ever really had a beer either, but he's like, they're good. My dad drinks them all the time, and I'm like, all right, I'll have one. So I remember I drank. It was like a Budweiser.
Ugh, how old were you? How old were you?
I was like 16 or 17 or something, like 17 maybe, I think. And
Wow.
I remember I took a drink of, it was a can of Budweiser, like a 12-ounce can. And I remember I drank it and was thinking, like, this is awful. It was really cold. It was I remember it was a hot summer evening, and I remember it was really cold, and that was kind of nice, but it tasted awful. And I remember it was like, oh, but I took a big gulp of it, and I remember immediately feeling the effect. It like went straight to my brain, and I continued to chug the rest of it. And I remember I felt amazing. I remember I was skateboarding better than I had ever could have imagined. I remember the rest of that.
As you thought, maybe. No, but maybe it was that way. Who knows?
No, I'm pretty sure I was just kind of performing at the same level as I always was. I was just in my head. I was like in heaven.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In my head, I'm like just blasting these head high airs when really it's not so true. I'm just high off alcohol, and I remember wanting another one, of course. So after we had that night, I was staying the night at my friend's house. And I remember we went back to his parents' house after the skate park, and we were both just sold on this beer thing. And we had raided his dad's refrigerator inside of the garage and drank like as many of them as we could. You know what I mean? Like, we were just, his parents were asleep at the time, and it was the summer, and we just started just drinking beers out of the garage, and then like trying to like hide the cans real quick and drink it. And it was already late at that point. I think it was already like 9 or 10 o'clock in the night. And I remember we had the great idea, let's go skating. So then all of a sudden we just went
into the streets and just skated all through the city. I remember waking up underneath. We both fell asleep on this patio at this Mexican food restaurant, and woke up like kind of in some shade underneath a picnic table. Like, what the hell happened? And it was like the sun was coming up, the traffic was roaring, and it was just like, oh, so awful. And I remember
Wow.
I was okay with that though. I was like, I kind of want to do this again. And he was like, hell yeah, me too. And I was like that was rad. And it sucks to say, but it's part of my story. Like, we did that pretty much every night the rest of that summer.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what tends to happen, doesn't it?
It didn't. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it for me. Like, I was. This is my thing now. Like, I want to get drunk, and it just fit so well into the lifestyle that we were, the punk rock and because we were, going. We were going to a lot of the punk rock shows a lot, and like it really intensified everything, alcohol, and just made it better. It was like
Totally.
was crazy.
Yeah. I'm gonna pause us for 1 second because I want to play around with your voice because it's starting to crack up a bit. So we're gonna pause this for a sec. Okay, so it's better. So you said it was like amazing, made everything better, right? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So then so that's when you started to kind of get into that, and then I guess you started to get into the drugs and all that stuff, right?
Drugs, like that kind of usage wasn't until much later.
Right. Okay.
For years, a couple years there, alcohol was really fun. It was really fun, there wasn't really too many repercussions from drinking. I think it might have even have been expected out of the, especially, because of the group I ran with and the age I was at. I wasn't feeling too many consequences from it at that time, but
right.
Those were soon to come. And so, yeah.
So when did you get into like, so that was like just a progression that kind of just happened through, just hanging out and being a kid around and skating and all that stuff. And then when did you find out? You were really early. You found out about the temple and bhakti and stuff, right? I mean, it was kind of early for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That was through a good friend that I would skateboard with. And I remember he had, I think it was like 14 or like that. And I wanted to, and I needed work. Anyway, I met a good friend skateboarding, and he was a devotee of Krishna, and him and his family, him and his wife and his kids. And he brought me to work with. I remember he's like, "Hey man, I need some." We would, me and him hit it off really good. Like, we were good friends. We went skating regularly on certain days of the week. He would come pick me up, and then we go and skate for hours, and we had a good time. Then he's like, yeah, I need some help at work. So he actually got me a good job. And, this all looked good to my parents. They were like, oh, cool. This is rad.
How old were you at that time?
I was like 15, 14, 15.
Oh, cool.
And
are your parents Catholic?
No, they're not nothing. I mean, my mom's like a spiritual, AA spiritual lady. Like,
cool. Mm-hmm.
Being in the garden is her spirituality type thing. And like, it's so she's really
which is the Hispanic side of you? Are you half Hispanic and half?
Yeah, my dad's side of the family. And it's funny because in that, I mean, we're jumping around a little bit, but it's funny because in that kind of culture, there really is no alcoholism. It's like, it's not really. It's like he's
just
dying
normal.
of drinking over there, and it's like, oh,
it's normal.
He's all right. He just needs to. He'll get through it. And it's like,
But is your dad's side of the family Catholic?
My grandma. Yeah, I remember when I was little, my grandma used to take me to church with her on Sundays, and we'd go sit on the big wooden benches, and I'd kick my feet around, and just wait for it to be over, kind of, because I didn't know what was going on or
Yeah,
anything.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Sorry, I
my
just
grandma
sidetracked that.
yeah, no, it's all good. My grandma still goes to church. My
Oh,
grandma's
nice.
so supportive. My dad's mom in like everything spiritual, you
Oh,
know.
nice.
She's always telling me keep up the God work.
You see, this is great, because that's why I asked. I thought maybe, you know, if your parents were, you know, a specific denomination or a specific, you know, whatever, that they might not like that you're going to the Hare Krishnas. Okay, so you're 14, 15, skating around.
Yeah.
You get hooked up with this kid, and
Well, he was much older than me, so he was like, you know, already fixed up with the family and stuff. And
right, okay, so he wasn't the son of that family; he was the father.
yeah.
Okay.
And so I remember just showing a little bit of interest, like with, we were just, you know, we listened, of course, we listened to lots of punk rock music. The lyrics, you know, of the music it really calls for one to think about what's going on around them. A lot of it's really conscious lyrics. And, you know, whether it be political or if it's, just like I said, more of like a conscious of singing about what's going on around you, and those kinds of lyrics I could identify with, and it was something that I was really attracted to, and he was too, and so we would meet in the middle on all these. I mean, we'd go to record stores and get all the music, you know, and listen.
What were
to
a couple of your favorites?
Bands that really got me going on thinking was like Crass. I mean,
wow.
listening to the, you know, the Stations of the Crass and the Feeding of the 5,000. I mean, these albums really, it was almost like Prabhupada when I read it was like, I was like, oh my God, like, wow. I never really knew, like, I never thought outside the box in such a way, you know, hearing like, especially I could say Crass lyrics, because they're heavy, they're out there, you know.
Totally.
They really
Absolutely.
yeah. So and we would do that. Me and Nitai would sit and, sorry, his name's Nitai, and we would sit and we would listen to music. And anyways, he had a lot of awesome, interesting point of views, I remember, on everything, and like lots of wisdom. And I remember like, how do you know this? And he'd be like, and he'd be like, well, check it out. And he would, you know, like show me, he gave me a book, Science of Self-Realization. And he never like pushed it on me or nothing. You know what I mean? He was never like,
he waited till you asked, totally, and then he said, absolutely. This is it. Yeah.
Totally. And I remember looking through his CD case too. And like, you know, back when there were CD cases, and like, I remember sitting in his truck and looking in his CD case and like seeing weird CDs, like ones like Badahari Das and like, you know, these different Kirtan CDs and Aindra Prabhu, and I'm just like, what is going on here? You know what I mean? So he was into all that, but we always just listened to punk music together. We never really listened to Kirtan in the beginning. We never really, in the truck going to go skate and stuff like that. So so I asked, you know, and he, as much as I asked, you know, reflecting on all that, he would reciprocate with me and like give me a book and tell me a little about you know, that book. You know what I mean? And keep reading. He'd say like, yeah, you should. That's a good part, huh? Like keep reading. Like yeah. And so I would go through like that, and then I also noticed that him and his family, they would go to the temple on Sundays. And I remember a few times seeing them all dressed up like devotees. Like,
oh, wow. What was like dhotis and everything? Like dhotis and saris?
Yeah. And, you know,
wow.
maybe he wasn't sometimes, but his family, like his kids and stuff were, and then they were all getting in the truck and I'm like, and then we go to work on Monday. I'm like, what is that about? What's that? What's going on? What's that about? And then, you know, he would share more and more with me. And then like, and I'm like interested. And then we got an opportunity, you know, he said, we're going to do some more side work over at the temple. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we go to our temple, the first temple he took me to. And we were like, we were demoing the bathrooms and then doing like a revamp on them. We took out a couple of old bathroom stalls and just totally installed brand new travertine tile and like different showers and everything like that. And so we were there for a good month or so, and so we were like eating prasadam every day, and it was just a weird experience. I remember going and just seeing it, and like, wow, it smelled weird, it looked weird, but it
It
was
smelled weird and looked weird.
it was an amazing smell though, like the
Yeah,
incense.
of course. It was like the Nakchamba and the Vrindavan
Yeah.
flowers and all of the amazing incense. Yeah.
There's a special smell at the temple. There's
Oh my
a,
God, totally.
there's a
Worldwide.
special, even I get my japa beads, I just ordered these and I get them and I smell them and
You
I can
smell
smell
them.
where they came
Oh
from. I
my
can still
gosh,
smell
totally.
like, oh my gosh. And anyways, and it was weird to me. It was but when I say weird, I don't mean in a bad way. It was different.
Yeah, it was strange for you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was also willing,
Culturally strange.
Totally. I mean, but I was used to strange. I hung out with
Yeah,
a
of
bunch
course.
of crazy punk rockers.
Punk rockers. Yeah, exactly.
So nothing was surprising. It was just different, and I was even more willing to engage, or just like even more willing to just go there and be a part of it, because Nitai was, and he was, and I wanted to do what he did. He was so rad to me, and so
How much older was he than you?
This is a good question. He's probably like 15 years older than me or so.
Oh, yeah, cool. So he was just still skating and stuff and just hanging.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Good stuff.
And I remember eating prasadam at the temple and like
tasting new tastes, like all that like Indian stuff. You're just like, what is this?
Yeah,
like devotee food. What is that?
They made this here, like they just made it, like what the heck? And like,
how did they do that? It was kind of the same when I first had my first plate of prasadam. It was for the CBGBs. I was like 13. They were giving CBGBs in New York. On top of CBs back then, there was a homeless shelter, and they used to come every Sunday and serve to the homeless shelter. And I just remember like getting this plate, like getting some, not a whole plate of food. It was just like a couple of things, and people were like, "Don't eat it. It's a cult. They're gonna like, there's saltpeter in it. It's gonna make you celibate." And I'm like, "What? It's gonna make you like." Yeah, not celibate. It's gonna make you what do you call it? Impotent. Yeah, impotent. I'm like, I don't have a penis, dude. Like, and when I first tasted it, I was like, oh my God. It was like no other taste that I have ever tasted. Ever.
Totally. Like I'm not sure what I'm eating, but it's like really, really good.
Yeah, totally. All right. So go ahead. Sorry. I just had to share that.
Yeah, and then thank you. And that was kind of my introduction to the temple like that. And so, but I never like ever went to a program though, like in that time. It was just to visit, like when we did the work at the temple. I remember we another time before, I think it was a Gora Pranim, we painted the inside of the whole temple, and it's a big temple, and like we had to take everything down, and it was a big project.
Wow.
I think we did it in like 2 days or something like that, but it was still
like devotee time.
We were working like 10-hour days.
Everybody's totally disorganized, but then it all gets done somehow. It's so crazy.
Yeah. And it was and so that was my like that. And so that, of course, I think there was a seed planted, I think much more way before that. Like I mentioned to you, there was this devotee who used to stand on the corner and spin and chant Hare Krishna when they picked me up from school. I don't know if you know Bhakta Avatar Prabhu.
Yeah, I know the name. I can't put the face though, but I do know.
Old man who just spins and he chants Hare Krishna. And
what does he spin for?
Just like he's dancing and he just spins, like not in like a radical fast motion, but Hare Krishna, and he spins around in a circle. And he'd be there every day. And I remember when I was little, me and my mom would see him when she'd pick me up from school, and she'd be like, "There's the happy guy again. There's the happy guy." Yeah.
I love it. Oh God, I love it. Yeah, I love that too. I love that your parents were open to that, and your mom was open to that, at least. That. Like,
totally.
It's
totally.
Perfect.
Totally.
So, all right. So you got into that. You started, Nitai started to like just explain stuff, you started hanging around with him and your interest started going there. Now, what was going on with, how long did it take for you to want to really be a part of the whole Bhakti community?
Well, that's a good question because, so that's a good question. So I started drinking, right? Like I said, by the time I was about 19, I had thoroughly burned my life to the ground. 19
Jeez.
or 20 years old. It only took a couple years of drinking, a few years. Not that I had some big extravagant life, but I definitely internally just really wrecked myself, And I understand that the drinking is just a symptom of a lot of things that are going on inside. And so I was always, growing up, I was always really shy, really timid, really hidden. I'm learning about all this now. Like, hard for me to express myself unless I was skateboarding. And I think that's why I was so heavily addicted to skateboarding, and still am, is that because when I skateboard, after I'm done, I feel so good and I can express myself and, hey, what's up, mom? And what's going on, guys? And like, everything's gravy.
I love that.
And so, but when I'm not on my skateboard and I'm supposed to be doing life or whatever the heck is in my day, I would just really shut down. So of course, when I found alcohol, when I found out, that all changed. It just made me very confident, very happy, and very everything. I wanted to go out and do things and all that jazz. So, but in a short period of time, it brought me to my knees. I remember sitting crying with Nitai one evening, and I was crying because I was drunk and I was crying. And I remember he recommended maybe you should go to the temple in San Diego. It's an ashram. You could clean up. There's a lot of other boys there your age. A lot of them are like, ex-punk rockers that have cleaned their stuff up, and they're all doing really well, dude. And I'm like, at that time, I wanted any kind of change. I was willing to do whatever it took, and like to change, to not whatever it took to not feel the way that I was. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Like, let's do that. So he's like, I'll take you to a Sunday program over there. And I remember he took me.
You're about 19. You're about 19?
Okay. Yeah. Turning 20, I think, going into this time. Like that. I remember like a summertime. My birthday's in the summertime. Lots of everything's went down in summertimes.
When's what month is your birthday?
It's June 30th. So.
Okay. Oh wow.
And,
okay.
And I remember, and it's hard for me to remember the exact details, but I remember I didn't own much either. Like, I didn't own much, And so I remember getting we went to a Sunday program. He's like, I'll take you to meet the devotees. And I remember getting to the Sunday program and sitting for the program, it being awesome. And then meeting Balram Prabhu. And I remember he was just like, I guess him and Nitai had talked, and he was like, so you're considering living here? And I remember I was like, oh yeah. And then
yeah, maybe. God, I don't know. Perhaps.
At that time in my life, I was not knowing what the heck, And so I was like, yeah. And he's like, good. And I remember Balram asking me, like, what do you do? What are you good at and stuff? And like,
skateboarding, listen to punk rock, skate or die. I am the living example of skate or die.
I'm like, I like to know. He's like, and then he's like, can you cook? Can you clean? Can you? I'm like,
I can skate.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I can do all that stuff. I can
you
do that.
said it. You said you could.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, because I can do whatever,
okay, cool.
Especially when I'm enthusiastic, I can do whatever. I can do.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
And so I'm like, yeah, I can do that stuff. And he's like, awesome, you'll be a great fit. It's something along those lines. And so
you're hired.
Yeah, and I remember he took me over to the ashram right next door, and he's like, okay, yeah, you'll stay in this room, and it was just an empty room. And there was like some personal belongings in the closet and stuff like that, and there's I think there was something like 15 other boys living there at the time, brahmacharis. And I remember,
Oh
so
my
the
God.
ashram was
In
this
that
little
one
house.
room.
And well, no, it was a 2-bedroom house.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, and they were all in the living room and then the 2 bedrooms. And there was some lockers in there. And I remember it was just like, you'll stay in that corner. It was on the floor in that corner. And I was just like,
That's your corner.
and I was like, all right. And
Welcome.
yeah. And he
That
showed
is
me, he's like,
amazing.
he's like, here's I had a sleeping bag. And he's like, so you could use that. And like, he showed me, he's like, after you get up in the morning. So he showed me under the sink, there's like a water pot. And he's like, so after you get up, you're going to want to take some soapy water. And after you fold your bedding up, wipe down the floor where you slept. And I'm like, all right, all right. So, they were little by little, they were kind of like, and like, what time are we going to be up to? Tomorrow morning, we're going to be up early, like 3:30. And I'm like, well, that's like tonight. And so it went from there, and it was pretty amazing, actually.
Wow. Wow. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay,
And
so you took to it well.
I did. And like,
But for a punk rocker too, like austerity, like sleep in the corner, that's like, yeah, okay, I'll sleep in the corner.
I sleep in the corner
it's
on
like,
the floor at my friend's house all the time.
yeah. So it's kind of normal for us. But yeah, the 30-30 is kind of like when we're just like maybe getting home,
Totally. And
Yeah.
so it was also new to me and everything, at that time, especially life at that age, life comes at you so fast.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's almost like against your will. It's like you just, for me anyway, life was coming at me so fast. And I'd make decisions that I look back now, I'm just like, what the hell was I think? I wasn't thinking. And so it was amazing from there. I remember my first Mongol Artik going into the temple, and I remember getting up and just, there was one bathroom in there, and I remember everybody being real quick about it. And some of the other devotees, they were just, they're just other boys, and they were just like schooling me like, okay, yeah, so be quick, and like jump in the shower because there's like a whole mess of us that are trying to get in there, like, what I mean? I'm like, okay, cool, I can do that. Jump in the shower.
But were you like did you feel like welcomed there, or were they like, were they all nice to you? Were they nice to you, or were they all like chastising you?
Totally. From what I remember, everybody I fit right in, I think, like I fit right in. I'm pretty good at fitting right in. I'm pretty good at getting with, it's not hard for me to make friends and to thrive in groups and stuff like that. It's really not. I like it, actually. So, I fit right in. I remember going into the temple for the first time, Mongol Artik, all the devotees were going in, they're bowing their heads, and then they were going in front of Srila Prabhupada and laying down on the floor. And I see Nitai do that a couple times, and I'm just like, there's a statue of Srila Prabhupada, which I was used to from the other temple. When the deities came out on the altar, it was like the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. It being so
what deities did they have there? Did they have Hare Krishna, or did they have
Radha Girdhari,
Radha Girdhari,
okay, and then Jagannath Baldev Subhadra, and then Gaura Nitai on the 3 altars.
Wow. Okay.
And they're beautiful deities. And I remember them, the altar opening and hearing the bells from the pujari and the artik, and
Did they play Govinda?
Oh well, no, in the very morning, it was the song, how does it go? Samsaradava Nalalida Loka Chanaya Karunya Ganaganatvam, that song. And so
yeah,
that's being played, the bells are being rang, he's like offering this lamp. It's dark in the temple, but the altar is completely lit up in certain areas that like really bring out the deities so nicely, and they're dressed wildly, like amazingly beautifully.
Wow.
And I remember hearing the kartals coming in, and the drums being played so early in the morning. It just shook my heart. It shook my soul. I remember it was like freaking like on Star Wars, that light speed, that whole stars go like jump to light speed. I felt like all of a sudden I was like floating in outer space in this room. Like it was the most amazing thing, and I'll never forget it. And it's still like it was yesterday to me. And yeah, those morning programs there were just bitching. They were awesome. I loved them.
Wow. So then, how long did you stay as a brahmachari in the temple?
Oh man, it was, it was rough. I was there for going on maybe a couple years. It was rough because I didn't intoxicate while I was at the temple, and that's an important thing. Is that later on I found out I just pretty much put my alcoholism on hold, like moving, and I just kind of tucked away all those problems I had, and
it just became an ism without the alcohol.
Boom. And the temple experience was like really awesome because it's so engaged all day. I mean, from the Mongol Archie, and then the full morning program with the Bhagavatam class, and then then we have breakfast afterwards, the whole program, and then we'd go to our services, and then different days of the week, every day there's something else. We go to do book tables or kirtan, and then get back, and then have then in the evening there's a Bhagavad Gita class, and after that Dravida would read from Krishna book, and then it was time for bed. And so every day it was full on, and there's a whole flock of us, a whole bunch of boys doing it, and it was like rad. And I made some of my best friends, like Bhishma Dev was just, I love him so much. And like
is he strong like Bhishma?
Bhishma is definitely, he's awesome. Me and him really clicked and had so many good connections. And Mahat Tattva Prabhu, the temple president at the time, would take us to these festivals to go distribute books, and it was crazy. It was awesome. And it was wonderful. But
so go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was pretty much out of words. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say, so basically everything was great. And then you felt kind of, if I'm not understanding you, please correct me if I'm not wrong in understanding, that it was great and you were doing your routine and it was awesome in that way. But then there was this, you have shoved the alcoholism aside, the ism stayed, and in a way you just kind of buried it.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that because of the isms, the alcoholism and all the other isms that we have, because you didn't work on those and didn't look at those and didn't really want to deal with those, they got in the way of advancing spiritually for you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because
great.
My behavior, absolutely.
Well, not great, but great that I understood properly.
It is a great thing because it's got me to where I am now. But I hear what you're saying. Absolutely. Because not addressing the alcoholism would only later just lead me to continue my, alcoholic behavior, which leads to bad decisions all the time. Bad decisions, which just leads me away from spiritual life. I mean, being drunk, when you're engaged in intoxication, you might be thinking of Krishna. And like sometimes I've shared with others before, sometimes when we would be drunk, we talk about Krishna more. But I mean, it's like you're ultimately turning your back on Krishna, taking your will into your own hands, and not doing any good for that relationship with Krishna. When you're intoxicating, you're going away from Krishna. So that continued. I fell in love after shortly after leaving the temple with the woman at the temple, and we had kids, and we were really gonna work. We were gonna get married and stuff like that, and we fell in love with each other. And but my alcoholism
was still there.
It was hard, and I didn't know how to. I simply wasn't prepared to deal with things, and I would just turn to alcohol, and that ruined our relationship. And she had to.
Sorry, I turned off the camera just because the bandwidth is slow. So go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, she had to move on. So that kind of, that's a big part of my, that's a part of my story that, and not knowing how to deal with that, I of course I just drank more and falling into,
Mm. So going back into regular life after you left the temple, you fell in love. The ism was still there. Did you shortly after there start drinking again?
Oh yeah, almost as soon as I got out, like as soon as I left.
Wow.
Yeah,
Was
it's
it
almost
calling
like
you while you were a brahmachari? Was it like, okay, you're winding up, I want to get out there, I'm going to drink, I want to have something to drink, I want to party, I want to do some things that I haven't done, and or were you more like, oh, I'm going to go out and just? What was your frame of mind when you knew you were leaving the temple?
It wasn't, partying and drinking wasn't really calling me when I was in the temple.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, like, it wasn't really calling me. Like, I didn't have any intention on really drinking.
Right.
I really didn't. I remember leaving the temple and I went back to the city I was from, and within a few hours I was already hanging out with these punk rockers and drunk. And I remember I just went right back to that crazy life that I was at right before I went in. It's almost like they were all still in the same damn park drinking, and like,
yep,
there was no defense against it. There was no defense against that of not drinking, because I really didn't understand that was my problem really at that time.
Right. So you thought, like, what's the harm in having a couple of drinks?
Sure.
But so would you say that having that gap, I mean, you just spent all these years being a brahmachari, really getting into that way of life and studying and being a devotee. Mm-hmm. And then you come out and you've got no defenses. Would you say that like a 12-step program would have been or is that gap between the understanding of a spiritual life and the dangers of those things that keep us away from Krishna?
Absolutely. It is. There's no doubt in my mind that the simple process of the 12 steps and having and doing it and approaching it with somebody that's done it before, mm-hmm. and is definitely a way to, let's say, like you said, is definitely a way to better approach bhakti. For me, for an alcoholic like me, I absolutely needed to do AA step work with a sponsor and really understand who I am and what the disease I have is, in order for me to practically start to apply what I've learned at the temple.
Yeah, I think that's really a very good, interesting point right now, because we're really right now at the crux of what that means, of how a 12-step program can assist in that. Because, shastrically, we wouldn't need a 12-step program, shastrically, because we would know that, we know that we're in a diseased condition, whether we're addict diseased or not. We're in Maya, and anyone who's born into this world in the age of Kali, we are diseased, period. However,
go ahead.
But however, some of us can't, that's a very far concept until we suffer from something that's tangible. Diseased, like when you're young, you don't feel like you're going to die. When you're young, you don't feel like, I mean, I didn't, at least I was like freaking invincible. I mean, when I was young, I would walk up to a Hell's Angels and be like, what's your problem, man? And I'm like teeny little girl, like, what the hell? But I'm just saying that having that one tangible thing in order to understand what a disease is and what this diseased condition is and how powerless we are over that diseased condition. Having that one tangible thing has been the hugest gift. So I think this is really at the crux of what we're talking about. Yes, okay, if you're intellectually, there are people who are very advanced, don't need a 12-step program, or they have another rasa, a whole nother feeling about that, and they can just completely skip over that kind of thing. But I think they're just having that disease of addiction, the disease of alcoholism, the disease of codependency, or whatever it is that we have, something that we can just by piecemeal, just one little thing will open that door. It did for me, knowing that I was an addict and powerless over my addiction, knowing that, and also knowing about things shastrically back then. That was such a far concept for me. It didn't make any sense to me. It only made sense when I had it happen to me in a very freaking tangible, obnoxious, horrible, painful way. So, yeah. So I think I'm hearing that from you. Also with that, you're saying that the 12 steps kind of gave you the possibility in order to understand Krishna and shastrically what you're supposed to understand.
Absolutely. Like there's no doubt in my mind. And I love that. And I love it so much that the 12 steps have been the bridge that takes me right to Krishna. At least I can see that can be a reality, provided that I stay on this path. Just the way the 12 steps are just set up and designed. I mean, they put you right at the feet of God.
Yeah, it's so amazing, isn't it?
It's
We're
very
lucky, aren't we?
Extremely lucky. And so like now, being an alcoholic or identifying as a drug addict, these things to me now have a whole different meaning, because now I know which direction. Now I know what needs to be done, because of the 12-step process, because the program, a simple spiritual program of action and a community of it, I know what needs to be done to stay healthy. I know exactly what I need to do each day in order to stay healthy, to stay sober, to stay sane, to stay honest. I know it needs to be done. And it's actually very simple, and I don't have to wander around wondering in life anymore.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's amazing.
Wow, you said that really, really nicely. So now that you're, fast forwarding, I guess is kind of a natural process, fast forwarding till now. So you've come, I don't know if you've constantly been sort of practicing your bhakti stuff. And I know that what I do know is that you've been in the program, with your fallbacks here and there, like we've all had. And you've been in the program. How is it? So how are you connecting the two, and what's helping you the most at the moment, in your recovery and in your bhakti practice?
Awesome question. Thank you. I'm so happy to answer these questions. I'm like, this is like, so yes. So I've really actually approached Alcoholics Anonymous in about 2017 or 18 or something like that, or 16, something like one of those years. And it's been a struggle. I dip into it a little bit, get a little bit of clarity, and then fall down and keep drinking. And so this has been my experience. And so as of right now, I have about 9 months of sobriety. And I remember getting to this detox I came to, and they're just like, well, what are you gonna do different this time? Because I've relapsed like 3 times up until this about 9 months ago. And I'm like, what am I going to do different this time? I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know. I remember just really being in a position. I was just exhausted, man. Like
It's the best position to be in.
Everything. The only people that wanted anything to do with me was the other drunks and freaks in this detox that I was at, and like I had, and it was just, what the hell? And so I had nothing. I had no other option. I had no other option besides to approach the 12 steps, and how, like, literally turn to the guy next to me and say, hey, I need help. And then he pulled out a big book and he's like, let's get started. And so we started going through the big book. And so what does that look like for me today is that my sponsor that we got started on the steps with in the beginning, about almost 9 months ago, he got me started on a routine. And so the routine is waking up, reading certain pages out of the big book first thing in the morning, um, writing down a gratitude list, and then also when I got to the 11th step, which we got through the steps within a couple months, when I got to the 11th step, start
AA
introducing.
style.
Yes.
Getting
And
through
he
them.
started,
Pow, 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 pow. I love that.
and then we started introducing the 11th step prayer and meditation, which was,
Oh, I love
I'm
that.
so happy to get to that point, the meditation part, because I love chanting Hare Krishna. So it's like, I was excited to get into that part and start chanting, part of my daily routine. By that time I had been reading, so I had a morning routine. The biggest and like the best thing, or the most valuable thing to me now, is the staying open-minded and willing and working with others. It's also the most challenging part, because you have to be so accepting, when you're taking other guys through the steps. You have to really let them talk and let them explain and let them, and it's hard to navigate these kinds of things. Everybody has so many different ideas of God, and but it's so amazing that, AA is just like whatever. A lot of guys don't even like, they have the hardest time in the world with God, and having to navigate that, it's interesting, and it's amazing. I kind of lost track of the question.
So no worries. Yeah, it's a great topic. So there are so many like subtopics in that one
Yeah.
topic. So the question was, what are you doing now? Like, so you have 12 steps and you have bhakti. How are you, how are you navigating through your life using both of those things, and how are they connected, and how are the things that you're doing, and you're answering that now. So
I do, I have every day I have a meeting I go to. Generally it's in the evenings, and I have a BRG that I attend. These are just,
yeah, we love it when you come.
I have the BRG that I go to, I think 3 times, Monday, Wednesday, and I think Thursday's the one. And so
Is that with Nancy?
yes, with Nancy.
Yeah,
Thursday.
so that's Thursdays. Yeah.
Yep. And then
great
Mondays.
meeting, by the way. Nancy's meeting is a great meeting. I haven't been there in a while. I should show up again.
You should. They're all awesome. So I have these meetings that I attend on Zoom during the day. I also have meetings I go to in the evening time outside of BRG. I have book studies. Thursday, I have I have a skateboard meeting at the skate park on Sundays that I run for broken down skaters like that. Saturday night.
You do a skateboard meeting? That's fucking, excuse my language.
Yeah,
that is awesome,
called,
man.
Called Wake and Skate.
Wake and skate, not wake and bake. It's wake and skate. I love it.
We meet at the skate park, and we're a bunch of alcoholics, and there's all kinds of
plug the meeting. Tell everyone who might be listening, maybe who's around from your area, where they can meet you.
Yeah, totally. In Costa Mesa, Newport area, in Southern California, even Huntington Beach. Yeah, we have a meeting in the park at the Volcom Skate Park every Sunday morning at 9:30 for an hour, and then we all do some turns after that and skate, and it's a good time. So
you guys listen to tunes too?
All the above. I mean, when you're skating, you're listening to music.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, totally. And so there's that meeting. A Saturday night meeting. I have a wonderful meeting with my friend Joey. Their brothers Joey and Duke. And then Friday night meeting. I'm sorry, Friday night skate night. But Thursday, Wednesday, all the way Monday, Tuesday. I have a meeting every night I go to.
So let me ask you something.
Yeah.
This is not the question. This is a rhetorical question for me, but for others who are listening.
Yeah.
Why do you go to so many meetings, Michael?
Why do I go to so many meetings? It's become, it used to be something that I need to do this. And in a sense, I do need to go to so many meetings, but at the same time, it's become something that I love. I've been replacing old habits and ways of life with new ones. I love going to AA meetings. It's for an hour out of my evening. It's not that big of a deal. I have such a big community of guys that I get to see every day. We check in on each other. We talk with each other. You get to share. You get to help other people with these meetings. It's a lifestyle that, that is much better than the one I was living, and I realize that on a daily basis. And so it encourages me more and more. Like the more meetings I go to, at least I would say like a meeting a day, and then maybe with the Zoom and then an in-person meeting. I think that's, for me right now, that's realistic. Somehow or another, Krishna allows that to be fit my schedule. And on top of that, I'm going skateboarding after work, and um, everything. I don't know. There's time. It's funny, when I was getting loaded, I always
There's
never
never
had
time for
never had
nothing,
time.
right?
But all of a sudden, there's just, I think it's a surrender thing, and
I think it's amazing. And I would like to add something to that. Our disease is 24/7, period. And when we think that we can go to a meeting a week and think that that's going to be okay, that's like, come on, guys. I mean, I don't know. Everybody has to figure it out for themselves. But I know for myself, my disease is 24 hours a day. I've walked 10 miles into the woods. That means I got to walk 10 miles out. And walking
Totally.
10 miles out, I don't have to do it alone.
Totally.
I got a meeting. So, my disease does push-ups outside, hanging out with Maya, laughing at me. And I need to, it's like people ask, like, why, you're 27 years in the program. Why do you still go? Why are you still going to meetings? And I said, well, I'm freaking been taking a shower since I was born. Should I stop now?
Right.
Exactly. Doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. It's like I said, now I know exactly what I need to do to stay healthy. I don't ever want to hurt or cause harm to others like I have in the past. I don't ever want to feel those feelings ever again. And there's a way to not do that. There's a way to not do that.
And I love that, Michael, about you too. The sincerity that you have in wanting to better yourself. I know about your story, and we've had some nice talks, and we had a really good talk the other day. And I'm so happy. I'm so relieved. And, I think, you've done your footwork. It's like you've done your step 8 and step 9, especially with the thing, people you've hurt, and you've made your amends, and there's nothing really more that you can do. The rest is up to the rest. We do our footwork, and the rest is up to Krishna. And I think you're on such a good path. And I've noticed it different from you. I never remember you came around about a year and a half or 2 ago. We were talking, and you wanted to. I can see your enthusiasm, but you seem you're just a lot more open and honest now, and I really like that version of you.
Thank you. I like this version of me too a lot more than any other version.
Yeah, but I liked the version of you last time too. I mean, you were great. We had a lot of fun talking and stuff, but I think I just see the change in you, and I'm really, really happy to witness that. And I love what you say about the program. I've loved everything you said about your process and your experience, strength, and your hope. This is why we do this. People can take a really good look at, or a really nice hear about what you're saying, and take good example. That's just good old, program right there.
Totally.
Mixed with some great bhakti, and you're a living and walking example. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much. You're so awesome.
Yeah, you're awesome. Nah, you're awesome.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, let's kind of wrap this up. How about that? Or you want to say something before we? Anything else that you feel like you want to say?
I would thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you and with this this whole BRG experience. Thank you so much. And if there's anything else I can do to be of service to this community, please let me know. Of course.
Thanks.
And
Michael.
if there's ever anybody that would like to talk or anything like that, please, you can reach out to me. Please. Yeah, I'm accessible through the BRG. So if you want to come into a meeting and find me, that's totally cool.
Great. Thanks, Mike. That means a lot. So this concludes our amazing talk with Michael L. Remember, you heard it here. And thanks a lot, Mike. We'll talk soon, okay?
Thank you.
Haribol.
Haribol.
This concludes another episode. Thanks for listening. In order for me to serve this community to the best of my ability, I welcome feedback. Please write your feedback at bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. Also, please don't forget to follow and give us a 5-star rating. Share this with family and friends. If you'd like to join our Bhakti Recovery community or just find out what we're all about, please visit our website at www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. That's www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. There are no dues or fees, and we meet daily. If you or someone you know is struggling with addictions and or associated behaviors, you will find links in our show notes to various 12-step programs. Nobody seeking recovery need ever be alone again.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.